Hello YouTube and welcome back to Lonely Rider's channel. And today we're going to be looking at the Injector. Lonely Rider is not a professional mechanic and is not responsible for any personal injury or vehicle damage that may result from individuals attempting the repair shown in this video. You have been warned. Try at your own risk. If you guys have been following the story with this bike for any length of time now, you'll know that when I bought this bike, it had a bad misfire in it in the bottom end of the rev range.
Did you hear that right there? Right there? It's hesitating right there.
When I bought it, it had a pretty crappy exhaust system. It had no fuel controller and a few other things, so I thought maybe if I just changed the exhaust, put a power commander on it, changed the air filter and everything, the misfire might go away. Well, it didn't. But the good news is I did figure out where the misfire was coming from and I did fix it. The spark plugs weren't the problem and the coils seemed like they were working fine, so then I turned my attention to the fuel system. Now, the dealership I bought this from thought it might be the fuel pump, but I did not think that the fuel pump was the problem. As I told you in previous videos, the bike only had a misfire in the bottom end of the rev range. The misfire would completely go away in the top end of the rev range, and that's key. If the fuel pump was struggling to keep up fuel pressure, you would expect to have trouble everywhere in the rev range. Matter of fact, you would probably expect it to get worse the faster you were going. As it turns out, the misfire was coming from the lower fuel injectors. If you have a situation where you have a bad miss in the bottom end of your rev range, but it seems to disappear when you get up into the high end of the rev range where the power band is, that is a clear sign that the problem might be in your bottom fuel injectors. The way the computer is programmed, the bottom injectors are used all of the time. The top injectors only kick on at high throttle or high RPM, I think above 8,000 K. And so these only kick on or off in the high end as needed. These are the primary injectors. But then whenever you get up to high RPM and these kick on, the extra fuel from the secondaries will kind of mask over the problem of the injector underneath of it that's not firing very good. So that's why when you get it up into the high band, the problem seems to magically disappear until you slow back down again. And that's what the case was for me. You can check that before you go buying any parts on eBay or anything. The injectors on the bottom and the injectors on the top are identical models, so they're interchangeable. So what you can do is you can actually pop the fuel rail off, take the bottom injectors, all four, move them to the top position, and take the top injectors, all four, and move them to the bottom position. If the problem was with one of the bottom injectors and you move it to the top, your bottom end misfire will completely disappear. And that's what happened with me. I moved my bottom ones to the top, I moved the top ones to the bottom, and the misfire completely vanished. The bike runs amazing now. Now there's still a problem with one of these injectors up here, but it's not nearly as noticeable in the top position because it only kicks on at high RPM. So what I could do at that point then is I could either try to isolate which one of the top four it is and try cleaning it or replacing it, or I can just do what I'm going to do and just do the shotgun approach and just replace all four of them with refurbished injectors off eBay and just call it done and move on with my life. Okay, first thing first, we're going to need some working rooms. You're going to have to disconnect this line and this line from the airbox because they are just going to be in your way. Try to bend them down out of the way like that so they're not sticking up in your face. So now you're going to see that there are 4 Phillips head screws, 2 on this side and then 2 on that side. And as you can see, mine have been chewed up because someone's been in here tampering with this before. So a common problem with these screws is because they're Phillips tip and not hex like everything else on the bike, which makes no sense. And they torque them down from the factory pretty tight. A lot of times people can't get them to break loose and they end up chewing up the end of the screw trying to get them off. So what some people do is they'll take a Dremel tool and if they can actually get them off, and they'll actually make a cut in them with a Dremel tool so that they can use a flat tip screwdriver to get them off. So that's a little tip if you're having trouble. But go ahead and take those 4 screws off. Now with all 4 screws out, now this whole fuel rail will just pull off. Now when you pull this off, I recommend that you pull it up and then tilt it back like this. There's actually a little rubber O-ring inside there that just sits on the tip. And if you tilt the fuel rail down at any point, those O-rings can fall off down into the bike. So when I pull it off, I always try to tilt it back right away as soon as I can. Okay, now like I said, I've already rotated my injectors. These used to be the bottom injectors here, and I'm going to replace all 4 of these top ones because one of these 4 is the bad one, or more than one of these 4 are the bad ones, and I'm just going to replace them with refurbished ones, put the fuel rail back on, and move on with my life. So this is the connector for the top injector. Okay, so now you want to get yourself a bowl to catch any gasoline that might drip out of there when you pull it off, depending on how much pressure is in there. Some gas might actually spray out, or it might just drip out. It just all depends on how recently you turn the ignition on and let the fuel pump prime. I haven't turned this bike on for over a day, so there shouldn't be much pressure in there, but if you just recently ran the bike, gas is probably going to spray out of there for a little bit, so you're going to need to get a bowl. Put the bolt up underneath the end like this. Now you only have to do this for the first one you pull off, because whatever pressure is in the rail after you pull off the first injector, all that pressure is gone. So the rest of them is just going to drip a little bit. So you only need to do this for the first injector. Grab a hold of the injector, and it's going to be tight because the seal's been in there for a while, so there's going to be a lot of suction. So you're going to have to be pretty forceful with it. You're going to have to pull pretty hard. But grab a hold of it, and you can kind of twist it a little bit while pulling on it to get it to come out. Okay, so there's the top injector. Okay, so that's the first injector out. Now here are my refurbished injectors off eBay. These have been sonic cleaned and tested. Now I'm going to go ahead and plug it in. Okay, that one's changed. Now I'm going to do the rest for the other 3. Okay, I just replaced the last fuel injector. There's the old 4. All the new 4 are in. Now we're going to put the fuel rail back on and put the screws on. Now before you put this back on, make sure you didn't lose any of these rubber O-rings right here on the ends of the injectors, because that needs to seal down in those holes, and if not, you'll get air get sucked in through there. Now the tricky part with putting this back on is you want to get the bottom ones started in first and then the top ones. So I'm going to try to line all the bottom ones up first, get those going in, and then slide the top ones in. Now look down through to make sure they're all going in. They are, except for this one, so I got to walk around to that side and figure out why that one's not going in. Okay, it's because that one right there is not going in all the way. There. Now it's on. Make sure that they're all in and seated. Now you can go ahead and put the screws on. Okay, so I got the outer 2 screws on. I got them just kind of snugged it and tightened them down yet. So now you can look down through with your flashlight and check to make sure every single one is in its proper place and it's up against the rubber seal. And then once you're good, put the other 2 screws in and then tighten all 4 of them down. Everything looks good as far as I can tell. They're all in. Everything looks good. I'm going to go ahead and tighten them down. Go ahead and reconnect the lines to the airbox. Here we go. That sound is the fuel pump priming. I do not see any leaks. So now we're going to go ahead and do a test start. Well, that's it for this episode. Catch you guys later.